Sometimes in life you just gotta ignore people. The funniest thing is I just realized I've still got my Jamaica SIM card. It was so simple and it really added so much positivity to my trip as a solo traveler. The locals will never let you down when it comes to like recommendations. Those of us who are not from the country, we come into the country and we feel like we know better than some of the locals. That mindset is a little bit questionable. Cheers! Welcome back to this channel. I am Winnie, in case you don't know who I am. I make vlogs and travel content. If this is the first one that you're watching a video of mine, please make sure that you hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so that you are notified every single time that I upload. And if you're an oldie and you've come back to watch this face of mine, love you long time. Hope that y'all are doing well. Firstly, I've cut my locks short again. I say again, but I last had a cut I think early 2023. Well, to be honest, I cut it a few times 2023, and it had grown some more, and I just had the urge to give myself a cut, to which I have, and I'm really loving it. But today's video, I'm really excited to talk about this because I find it very interesting. I have been solo traveling for over a decade now, and rarely do I get as much interest about like how did you manage to navigate solo traveling to that country as I have from my recent trip to Jamaica. So in case you don't know, I went to Jamaica for 2 weeks solo dolo recently, like late April to like mid-May this year. And lots of people were asking me via Instagram, via TikTok, via like old videos on here, how did I manage to do it, especially as on this occasion I didn't stay at any all-inclusive resort at all. Like I stayed at like Airbnbs, guest houses. That was sort of the vibe. So yeah, I thought I would make a more in-depth video. I have actually done a reel or a YouTube short in regards to it, but some people have requested that I do like a longer sit down chit chat, so here we are. Before I get into that, one thing that I will say is when it comes to solo traveling in general, this is not just exclusive to Jamaica, there are certain destinations where people will deter you from going. Sometimes people will deter you from going with genuine reason, or because obviously they have your safety in mind. However, in regards to Jamaica, what I will say is before going on my recent solo trip, I'd actually been thinking about eventually doing a solo trip to Jamaica for a long time. And I remember I very briefly mentioned it on my TikTok and my Instagram. And I was very taken aback that a lot of like people with Jamaican heritage, so like British born Jamaicans or those that were born and grew up in Jamaica for a little while and predominantly grew up here in the UK, all of them were saying to me, don't do it. Like, don't do it, it's not safe. Oh, even my mom who was like raised there doesn't go, da 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 da. And for me, I went to Jamaica for the first time in October 2023 last year. So just to make it clear in case you don't know, I don't have any Jamaican heritage whatsoever. I am Ghanaian, from a Ghanaian background, okay? Went to Jamaica for the first time last October 2023, and the little that I saw made me know that that was not gonna be my only trip to there. I knew that I would wanna come back solo, and not only would I wanna come back solo, I would want to come back and check out different parts of Jamaica and just experience it for myself and see how I can navigate traveling through Jamaica as a non-Jamaican person, okay? So I say all of that just to say, sometimes in life you just gotta ignore people and just follow your gut. Obviously apply common sense, do your research and all of that other good stuff, okay? So yeah, I thought I'd make this video to basically sit down and talk about the tips that I shared in the reel. Those of y'all may have not seen it. Just a little bit more in depth. These tips that I'm about to share, I don't even think it's just, you know, solely for Jamaica. These tips I generally tend to use for like other countries that I travel to as well, if I'm being very honest. However, I do know that there's a lot of people that have been thinking about solo traveling to Jamaica, etc., and so they would find this video helpful. So if you're watching this video and you're thinking about going to another country and it's not necessarily Jamaica, you can easily use these points are basically transferable is what I'm trying to say. So my first point is pre-book transportation from the airport to your accommodation. So like I said, I've been traveling solo for way over a decade now, and all the time, minus one time, I think when I traveled to Nantes in France earlier in this year, I didn't, but all of the time I will book transportation from the airport to my accommodation. So for my trip to Jamaica recently, I flew into the airport in Kingston, and I had pre-booked my taxi with booking.com. So in case y'all are not familiar with booking.com, with booking.com you can book accommodation on there, you can also book tours on there, and you can also book travel, and you can do other stuff. I say travel, so you can book transportation from your airport to your accommodation, or your accommodation to the airport, etc. on there. And if like myself you use booking.com quite a bit, you can also get little discounts on there. Like I think I'm on Genius level 2, so I think I get, is it like a 10% discount or something like that. And when I booked my taxi with them, you can also request for your taxi driver to basically hold a card or something with your name on there so that you know who you go to. And not even just that, but even before you land, your taxi driver would have messaged you to say, hi, I'm so and so, just to let you know I'm currently waiting for you at this part of the airport or outside the airport, and you guys can have that communication. For me, it's important for me to book my transportation from the airport to wherever I'm staying, because it makes things easier. And not just that, but also in terms of safety as well, especially if you're landing into a country that you're not familiar with late at night and you're by yourself. It just makes sense. Point number 2 is that the majority of my accommodations were in the center. Now, as a solo traveler, for me, it is important for me to just make things easier for me, because I feel like when things are easier for me, it helps me to enjoy my travels a lot more. So staying in a location which is in the center, it's near like shops, it might be near things that I want to see. It cuts back on you having to spend a lot of money on like transportation, on like taking taxis or catching local transportation or whatever it may be. Now, when I went to Jamaica recently, I stayed in Kingston, I stayed in Port Antonio and Negril, okay? And for Port Antonio and Kingston, I literally was in the center, so I was in walking distance to most places, and if I wasn't in walking distance to most places, it was very easy for me to get transportation to go. But it made my life really easy. So like, for example, when I was in Kingston, where I was staying was literally like a 2 or 3 minute walk to the Emancipation Park. And I'm not gonna lie, I was at that park every day when I was in Kingston. However, when I was in the grill where I was staying, I had booked it quite last minute. It was a little bit further out, so I had a different experience. For me to want to kind of do things in the center, I would have to spend money and catch a cab. My third point is I got a local SIM card, which I won't lie, it added a very different vibe to my trip. So when I went to Jamaica for the first time last year, I stayed in Mobay, and me and my friends stayed at an Airbnb for half of the trip, and then we stayed at an all-inclusive resort for the latter part of the trip. And we had to constantly rely on Wi-Fi in order to get things done. Now this time around on my solo trip, where I actually got a local SIM card, all I needed was my ID and obviously to pay for whatever kind of data and package that I wanted. It made things so much easier, because it meant when I was out and about, out of the house, I would stay connected. And I'll be honest, as a solo traveler, solo woman traveler at that, it is very important for me to be connected. I should be able to message back home or message friends or whatever when I'm out and about. I should be able to look up things like where is the nearest shop, where is the nearest restaurant. If I want to like be posting to socials as a content creator, I should be able to do that on my travels. So for me, getting a local SIM card really helped on my trip. And also when I did things like having to order Ubers, for example, you've got your data, you're able to do that. Oh, actually, the funniest thing is I just realized I've still got my Jamaica SIM card. So I got Flow, and Flow offers like unlimited data. I think I got it for like I can't remember how long I got mine for, maybe for about 2 weeks, I think it was. I would definitely recommend Flow, I won't even cap. So my fourth point is that I used local taxis or Uber drivers when necessary, and I'd get the contact details of some of the drivers if I felt they were trustworthy. However, for the most part, Google Maps was my best friend. So yeah, when you're staying in the center of certain places, you may not necessarily need a taxi to get around, because you could just essentially walk it, depending on how hot it is and how much heat you can handle. However, different parts of Jamaica, different things work. So for example, I realized that when I was in Montego Bay, for those that don't know, when I was in Montego Bay in Jamaica last year, an app called InDrive was working fine. For some reason, when I was in Kingston this time around, InDrive wasn't working for me, and I couldn't quite tell if it was like a personal, like my phone issue, or if it wasn't working. However, I discovered that Uber was working. So when I needed to go further out from where I was staying, I would use an Uber, and because I had my SIM card, it was very easy to call, and they were very reliable, very professional, very easy to use. And then when I was in Port Antonio, I wasn't using an Uber. I don't even know if Ubers even work in Port Antonio, I didn't even check. But basically what happened was, when I took the coach to, or Knutsford Express it's called, to Port Antonio, when you get off, there's like taxi drivers and stuff that obviously waiting to take passengers out to make money, etc. So yeah, the guy that basically took me from the coach station at Port Antonio to my accommodation is basically the main kind of point of contact. I used him a few times on my trip. He gave me his number, we exchanged numbers. Very professional vibes, and I think it's just a very useful way for you to get around when you start building connections that way. My fifth point, and I cannot emphasize this enough, but I use Knutsford Express when traveling between parishes. So for those of you who aren't familiar with what Knutsford Express is, I've kind of said it earlier on in this video, but Knutsford Express, people say it's a bus, but I'm used to calling it a coach, right? It's a coach. It's very clean, it's very comfortable, it's very spacious, it's got like aircon, you can like charge your phone. Sometimes they have a TV on, so they might have like a movie running and whatnot. So the Knutsford Express can take you in between different parts of Jamaica. So I took it from Kingston to Port Antonio. I also took it from Port Antonio to Negril. However, I do need to make it clear, sometimes you may need more than one coach to get to your destination. So for example, from Kingston to Port Antonio, I had to get off somewhere to then catch a connecting coach to Port Antonio. From Port Antonio to Negril, it wasn't a straight coach that took me. I had to take a Knutsford Express coach to Montego Bay, and from Montego Bay get one to Negril. So you can end up being on coaches for a good couple of hours, and it can be tiring. But let me tell you something though, as a solo traveler, I was pleasantly surprised with their service. When you book your tickets, so I book it online, then when you get to their office, you check in, and they give you like a physical copy of like a boarding ticket thing, and they also give you a free bottle of water is included in your ticket. But in terms of like getting around, what I was really impressed by is that the driver will always make an announcement on the mic, and it's clear on what stop it is, so that you know to get off. And if like myself, sometimes your stop was obviously the last stop, then obviously you know to get off the last stop. But I was a little bit like nervous, like, am I gonna get lost? Because I am that person that can get lost really easy. However, using Knutsford Express, it was so simple, and it really added so much positivity to my trip as a solo traveler, and I just can't recommend Knutsford Express enough. I can't wait to use them again personally. Point number 6 is I predominantly went out during the daytime. The odd occasion I popped out at night alone. I soon learned that that wasn't a bright idea. So yeah, on my 2 week stay, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't do any partying and stuff like that, not on this occasion. So like I said, I went out during the day when it was bright and stuff like that. On the odd occasion that I went out at night, I went out with a local, so it was fine. There was one time in the grill when I went out by myself, and it was just very, very overwhelming because where I was staying, it was further out from the center, and that road was quite dark at night. And you know, men will approach you as they will approach you anywhere else in the world, but when you are a solo woman traveler and you're by yourself and it's at night, and men are approaching you and you're saying no, and they're semi like following you even though you're saying no and you're by yourself, it can be a bit overwhelming. So yeah, if you're gonna solo travel, I would say walk around, go out and about during the day. If you are gonna travel about at night, then make sure that you have some safe mode of transportation to get you to a certain place, and also to get you from wherever you're going to back home is what I would say. Point number 7 is I would read Google reviews on where to eat, and I would also ask the locals. I think it's very self-explanatory, to be honest. Google reviews is absolutely phenomenal because it allowed for me to discover so many great eateries, right? Because you can go in there and you can read reviews and whatnot. However, let's not forget, nothing beats just asking the locals where they would recommend. So for me personally, on my trip, I didn't care to eat at like these fancy schmancy restaurants. Nothing wrong with them at all. But I wanted that authentic Jamaican cuisine, right? Like I want to sit down and I want to eat rice and peas with fish and veg that has been cooked with love, right? For a reasonable price. And in order to find that, you either go on Google reviews or you ask the locals like, yo, where can I get the best fish? I'm a fish eater, right? Where can I get the best fish? The locals will never let you down when it comes to like recommendations. They're always more than happy when, you know, a visitor comes around and wants to actually like immerse themselves in the culture, respectfully, of course. Point number 8 is, generally speaking, I'm not a standoffish person. Like I've got like a warm energy. I'm the type of person when I'm out and about, I will have random conversations with people and keep it stepping. And I think that honestly, as a solo traveler, that is a good trait to have. Just being friendly, just asking questions, just learning more about your surroundings. However, obviously, being that way inclined, you still need to make sure that your safety is a priority. So even though you may be open to like having conversations with people, just apply common sense when you're doing it. Point number 9 is if any locals advise me not to go to certain places, then guess what? I wouldn't go. Now, the reason why this was one of my points is because I remember before I flew out, I was watching a TikTok video of these girls. I don't even know where they were from, but I believe they were staying in somewhere in Kingston, right? And they had been advised not to go somewhere. I can't remember where it was, if it was like a market or something. For the life of me, I can't remember. But they still proceeded to go. And I remember reading the comments, and all the locals in the comments was like, what, you think you know more than those that are local to you, sort of thing. And that really stood with me, because I do find it interesting how sometimes those of us who are not from the country, we come into the country and we feel like we know better than some of the locals. That mindset is a little bit questionable. Another example that I can give, a personal example, is I went to the National Gallery of Jamaica, right? And I had booked an Uber from where I was staying to there. And obviously the Uber driver had noticed that I was carrying my vlogging camera, etc. So before I got out of the car, he said, just to make you aware, when you come out of the gallery, you can go and look at the ocean and stuff. However, when it goes beyond a certain road, don't go up there because, you know, your camera will get taken. And I thanked him so much because I was so glad for that piece of information. And you will find that locals will give you information if they could just sense that you've got good energy, you're not coming with any malicious intent and stuff. I personally feel that they look out for people if you're, again, respectful. But I just appreciate that, because obviously he knew I wasn't from there. There's a chance that maybe I may walk around my camera and I would have no clue that maybe, although one side is perfectly safe, maybe another area isn't, and I could have walked around with my camera and my camera could have got stolen. And it is my camera that I use to vlog and share my experiences. So yeah, those are basically my 9 tips. Honestly, what I will say is, if it's not clear already, I absolutely love Jamaica. I love Jamaicans. I think that they're so friendly, they're so welcoming. There hasn't been a time when I felt like any bad vibes or bad energy just because I wasn't Jamaican. And that's an experience that always sticks with me. And like I said, there's so much similarities between Jamaica and Ghana. When I'm in Jamaica, I feel like I'm at home. Like, it's the best way for me to put it. Like, anywhere in the world, when you travel, you may also have some negative experiences, as well as obviously having lots of positive experiences, and that's with anywhere in the world. So what I will say is, if you are looking to solo travel to anywhere in the world, no matter where you go in the world, just be mindful, be respectful, have your wits about you, and apply common sense, and try your best to immerse yourself in a culture without being disrespectful. I really hope that these tips, you know, helps. Even if it helps just one person, I would be very, very happy. Thank you so much for watching this video, and until my next one, take care, be good.